September 30th, 2025, the ground beneath Cebu in the central Philippines began to violently shake at approximately 10 p.m. local time. A 6.9 magnitude earthquake, the strongest ever recorded in northern Cebu, tore through the province with devastating force. Buildings swayed, glass shattered, panic spread like wildfire through the streets as residents scrambled for safety. The epicenter was in Bogo City, and within hours, the death toll began climbing. At least 69 people lost their lives, with over 290 injured. It was the deadliest earthquake the Philippines had seen in over a decade, and the world watched in horror as rescue crews desperately searched through rubble for survivors. But while emergency responders battled to save lives, another kind of chaos was erupting online. Samantha Markle, Meghan's estranged half-sister, took to X, formerly known as Twitter, with a series of explosive posts that sent shockwaves through social media. Her message was urgent, desperate, and inflammatory. She claimed that her father, 81-year-old Thomas Markle, was trapped on the 19th floor of a building in the Philippines after the massive earthquake. According to Samantha, he was unable to walk and completely trapped, with no way to escape the damaged structure. The posts didn't stop there. Samantha's rage poured out in real time for the world to see. She wrote, quote, "Shame on my disgusting evil sister for forever putting our father in this position. I hope she is cursed," end quote. The attack on Meghan was vicious, public, and calculated. Samantha then doubled down with another post that read, quote, "Shame on Harry and Meghan, may they be damned. He gave her everything, and this is how she repays him," end quote. The blame was laid directly at Meghan's feet, as if she had personally caused the earthquake or orchestrated her father's supposed suffering. Within minutes, the narrative exploded across the internet. Headlines screamed about Thomas Markle trapped in a disaster zone, while his famous daughter lived in luxury in California. The story had everything: a natural disaster, a frail elderly man in peril, family betrayal, and the ongoing drama surrounding Meghan Markle. Comment sections lit up with outrage. Some defended Meghan, others piled on with accusations. The narrative was set. Thomas was helpless, abandoned, and suffering because of his daughter's coldness. Concern poured in from around the globe. People who had followed the Markle family saga for years suddenly feared the worst. Was Thomas really trapped? Was he injured? Would rescue crews reach him in time? The image Samantha painted was bleak. An elderly man unable to move, stuck high in a building after the most powerful earthquake the region had ever experienced. The drama felt urgent, real, and heartbreaking. But as the hours ticked by and the dust began to settle, something didn't quite add up. And then, Thomas Markle himself decided to speak. What he revealed next would expose a truth far more shocking than anyone anticipated. Samantha Markle wasn't just sharing concern for her father. She was weaponizing a natural disaster to launch yet another public attack on Meghan, and the internet ate it up. Her posts on X didn't just claim Thomas was in danger. They explicitly blamed Meghan for his predicament. The subtext was clear. If Meghan hadn't cut off her father, if she hadn't abandoned him, he wouldn't be in the Philippines in the first place. He wouldn't be trapped. He wouldn't be suffering. In Samantha's narrative, Meghan's estrangement had directly led to this moment of crisis. The post spread like wildfire. Within hours, major tabloids picked up the story. Headlines screamed about the Duchess of Sussex's father trapped in an earthquake disaster zone while she remained silent. Social media platforms exploded with debate. Team Meghan argued that Samantha had a long history of stirring up drama and making unverified claims. Team Markle countered that this was a humanitarian emergency and family should come first, regardless of past grievances. The battle lines were drawn and the internet became a war zone of opinions. Samantha's inflammatory language only fueled the fire. Calling Meghan disgusting and evil in a public forum during what was supposedly a life-threatening emergency felt calculated. It wasn't just a daughter worried about her father. It was a targeted character assassination timed to maximize damage. The curse she wished upon Meghan, the damnation she called down on Harry. These weren't the words of someone simply panicking about a loved one in danger. They were the words of someone with an agenda. Royal watchers and Meghan supporters immediately questioned the timing and tone. Why was Samantha's first instinct to attack Meghan rather than coordinate rescue efforts? Why was she posting rage-filled tweets instead of contacting emergency services in the Philippines? If Thomas was truly trapped and unable to walk, shouldn't the priority be getting him help rather than scoring points against Meghan on social media? The questions piled up, but Samantha's narrative had already taken hold. Media outlets ran with the story. Some framed it as a tragic family drama unfolding against the backdrop of a natural disaster. Others questioned whether Samantha's claims were accurate, pointing to her history of public feuds with Meghan and her dismissed defamation lawsuit. But accuracy didn't matter in the moment. The story was too juicy, too dramatic, too perfectly aligned with the ongoing Markle family saga to ignore. Thomas Markle, the man who had missed his daughter's royal wedding, the man who had staged paparazzi photos, the man who had never met his grandchildren, was now supposedly fighting for his life, while Meghan remained an ocean away. The narrative painted Meghan as cold, heartless, and indifferent to her father's suffering. It reinforced every negative stereotype her critics had pushed for years, and for a brief moment, it seemed like the story might stick. But what nobody knew yet was that the entire crisis was built on a foundation of lies, and the person who would expose those lies was Thomas Markle himself. While the world spiraled into panic and Samantha's posts racked up thousands of shares, Thomas Markle decided it was time to set the record straight. He reached out to TMZ and other media outlets with a message that would stop everyone in their tracks. The 81-year-old wasn't trapped, he wasn't injured, he wasn't desperately clinging to life on the 19th floor of a crumbling building. In fact, he was perfectly fine, sitting comfortably in his hotel room with his feet kicked up, watching Charlie Chan movies on television. Let that sink in for a moment. While Samantha painted a picture of her father helpless and unable to move, Thomas was lounging on his couch, completely relaxed, enjoying classic detective films. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. He told reporters, quote, "I'm currently sitting on the couch in my hotel room with my feet kicked up and watching Charlie Chan movies. I'm quite comfortable," end quote. No panic, no distress, no life-threatening emergency. Just a man enjoying a quiet evening in his hotel. Thomas confirmed that he was safe and in no way trapped or unable to walk. The earthquake, while devastating for many in the region, had occurred approximately 100 miles away from his location in Cebu. His hotel hadn't been impacted by the quake at all. The building wasn't damaged. He wasn't stuck on any floor. He wasn't in danger. Everything Samantha had claimed was either wildly exaggerated or completely fabricated. And then came the bombshell that would expose just how manufactured this entire drama really was. Thomas revealed that he hadn't even spoken to Samantha. Not before her posts. Not during the supposed crisis. Not at all. He was genuinely puzzled by her claims, wondering where she had gotten the idea that he was trapped and unable to walk. How could she have known his condition if she hadn't bothered to contact him? The answer was simple and damning. She didn't know. She had made assumptions, jumped to conclusions, or perhaps even deliberately crafted a narrative designed to maximize drama and public sympathy while simultaneously attacking Meghan. Thomas issued a public statement to ease concerns. Quote, "Please don't worry about me. Everything is okay," end quote. He expressed gratitude to everyone who had shown genuine concern for his well-being. But the damage to Samantha's credibility was done. She had cried wolf during a real humanitarian crisis. She had used a natural disaster that killed nearly 70 people as a vehicle to launch another attack on Meghan. And she had done it all without even checking if her father was actually in danger. The revelation was stunning. Social media erupted again, but this time the anger was directed at Samantha. People who had believed her initial posts felt manipulated and betrayed. Royal watchers who had defended Meghan felt vindicated, and those who had attacked Meghan based on Samantha's claims suddenly found themselves on the wrong side of the truth. But the question remained, why would Samantha do this? What was her endgame? And how would this latest manufactured crisis affect the already shattered Markle family dynamic? The truth hit like a second earthquake. Samantha Markle had fabricated an entire emergency without bothering to pick up the phone and call her father. The woman who had publicly cursed Meghan, who had blamed her half-sister for putting Thomas in a life-threatening situation, hadn't even confirmed whether Thomas was actually in danger. The implications were staggering. This wasn't a case of miscommunication or innocent panic. This was calculated, deliberate, and designed to inflict maximum damage on Meghan's reputation during a real humanitarian tragedy. Sources close to the situation began speculating about Samantha's motives. Was this simply another attention-seeking stunt in her years-long campaign against Meghan? Was she trying to reignite public sympathy for Thomas and paint Meghan as a heartless daughter who abandoned her father to suffer alone in a foreign country? Or was there something even darker at play? A willingness to exploit a natural disaster that had killed dozens of people just to score points in a family feud? Whatever the motive, the execution was breathtakingly cynical. Industry insiders whispered that this pattern was nothing new for Samantha. Her history of public attacks on Meghan stretched back years. The defamation lawsuit she filed against her half-sister, which was ultimately dismissed in 2023. The constant media interviews painting Meghan as ungrateful and cruel. The social media posts dripping with venom and resentment. But this incident crossed a new line. Using a deadly earthquake as a prop in her ongoing vendetta felt particularly grotesque, even by Samantha's standards. What made the situation even more bizarre was Samantha's follow-up behavior. After Thomas publicly contradicted her claims, she posted updates that seemed designed to save face. Quote, "As of today, he is okay, and making plans to get out of that building. They seem to be safe for now," end quote. She thanked people for their concern, but conspicuously avoided explaining how she had gotten her facts so spectacularly wrong. there was no apology for the false alarm, no acknowledgement that she had spread misinformation during a crisis, no clarification about why she believed her father was trapped when he clearly wasn't. Then, in a move that spoke volumes, Samantha made her ex account private. The woman who had so publicly attacked Meghan, who had painted herself as a concerned daughter, desperately worried about her father, suddenly decided to hide from public scrutiny. The timing was telling. Once the truth came out, once people started questioning her credibility and motives, she retreated behind privacy settings. But the damage was already done. Her posts had been screenshotted, shared thousands of times, and immortalized in news articles around the world. The manufactured crisis exposed something deeper and more troubling about the Markle family dynamics. This wasn't just a one-time mistake or a moment of panic. This was part of a pattern of weaponizing media attention, of creating drama where none existed, of using any available opportunity to attack Meghan publicly. And the most shocking part? Thomas himself had become collateral damage in his daughter's war against her half-sister. His actual well-being seemed secondary to the narrative Samantha wanted to create. To understand why Thomas Markle was in the Philippines at all, we need to rewind to January 2025. That's when the 81-year-old retired Hollywood lighting director made a decision that shocked those who had followed his story. He packed up his life in Rosarito, Mexico, where he had lived for the past decade, and moved permanently to Cebu in the Philippines. It wasn't a vacation. It wasn't a temporary escape. This was a complete relocation, a journey of approximately 7,500 miles across the Pacific Ocean, undertaken with his son Thomas Markle Jr., who is 58 years old. The move raised eyebrows. Why would an elderly man with a history of serious health problems relocate to Southeast Asia? Why leave Mexico, a place closer to the United States and his estranged daughter, for a country halfway around the world? Thomas answered those questions himself in interviews before and after the move. His words painted a picture of a man exhausted by drama, desperate for peace, and ready to start over in his final years. Quote, "I am ready for a change. I have felt stuck in a rut for some time, and I am ready to meet new people and experience kindness." End quote. Those words carried weight. Thomas wasn't just talking about changing scenery. He was talking about escaping a cycle of negativity, media circuses, and family warfare that had defined his life since Meghan's relationship with Prince Harry became public. The awful drama of recent years, as he called it, had taken its toll. At 81 years old, he wanted something different, something quieter, something that didn't involve paparazzi, tabloid interviews, and constant public scrutiny. Thomas was even more direct about his primary motivation. Quote, "Mostly I just want peace." End quote. 3 simple words that spoke volumes about what his life had become. He explained that at his age, he preferred a quiet life, away from the chaos that had consumed his final years in North America. The Philippines offered something Mexico and the United States couldn't: genuine distance from the media machine that had chewed him up and spit him out repeatedly. But the decision wasn't purely emotional. Southeast Asia provided practical benefits that appealed to a man in Thomas's situation. Better healthcare at more affordable prices, a culture that respects and honors elderly people rather than marginalizing them, a peaceful lifestyle with lower cost of living. For someone on a fixed income with mounting health concerns, these factors mattered. Thomas had suffered 2 heart attacks and a stroke in recent years. His mobility was limited. He needed stability and access to medical care without the financial burden that often comes with aging in Western countries. The move was bittersweet in another way. Thomas brought only a few belongings with him, but among them were photographs of Meghan from her childhood. Even after years of estrangement, even after all the public feuding and painful silence, he still carried images of his daughter across the ocean. It was a small detail that revealed a complicated truth. Thomas's desire for peace didn't erase his grief over losing Meghan. It just meant he was tired of fighting. The life Thomas Markle abandoned when he boarded that plane to the Philippines was one marked by regret, scandal, and deteriorating health. His decade in Rosarito, Mexico, hadn't been the peaceful retirement he might have once imagined. Instead, it became ground zero for one of the most infamous family dramas in modern royal history. The staged paparazzi photographs, the missed wedding, the endless tabloid interviews, the heart attacks that came at the worst possible moments. Every chapter seemed to deepen the chasm between Thomas and his daughter. Let's go back to May 2018, the moment that changed everything. Thomas was supposed to walk Meghan down the aisle at her wedding to Prince Harry at Windsor Castle. The world was watching. It should have been his crowning moment, the proud father escorting his daughter into royalty. Instead, he became the center of a scandal that overshadowed the ceremony itself. Reports emerged that Thomas had collaborated with paparazzi to stage photographs of himself preparing for the wedding, reading books about Britain, getting measured for a suit, looking at images of Meghan and Harry on his computer. The photos were fake, carefully orchestrated for payment, and when the truth came out, the humiliation was public and brutal. Thomas claimed he staged the photos to improve his image after being constantly photographed looking disheveled, buying beer and junk food. He wanted to appear dignified. Instead, he destroyed what little trust remained between him and Meghan. The fallout was immediate. Thomas initially pulled out of the wedding, then changed his mind, then suffered what he described as a heart attack just days before the ceremony. He underwent cardiac surgery and was physically unable to attend. Then Prince Charles stepped in to walk Meghan down the aisle instead. Thomas watched his daughter get married on television from a hospital room in Mexico. That wedding became the breaking point. Thomas and Meghan haven't spoken since before that day in May 2018. 7 years of total silence. 7 years of estrangement so complete that Thomas has never met Prince Harry face to face. He has never held his grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet. He doesn't know what their voices sound like. He doesn't know their personalities, or their favorite toys, or what makes them laugh. He exists as a stranger to an entire branch of his family, separated not just by distance but by a rupture that seems irreparable. The years that followed were filled with more controversy. Thomas gave numerous interviews to tabloids and television programs, often sharing private details about Meghan's childhood and criticizing her decisions. Some saw him as a heartbroken father trying to reach his daughter through the only means available. Others saw him as someone cashing in on his connection to royalty. The truth was probably somewhere in between, a complicated mess of hurt feelings, poor judgment, and media manipulation on all sides. His health continued to decline. 2 heart attacks, a stroke. By May 2025, he was photographed in Cebu using a walking stick in brutal heat, 33 degrees Celsius with 90% humidity. His body was failing, his family was fractured beyond recognition, and the media circus never stopped, so he made a choice. He would trade proximity for peace. He would cross an ocean to find what Mexico could never give him, distance from the wreckage of his own making. 7 years. That's how long the silence has stretched between Thomas Markle and his daughter Meghan. 7 years without a phone call, a text message, a letter, or any form of direct communication. 7 years during which Meghan married a prince, left the royal family, moved to California, had 2 children, built a media empire, and rebuilt her life entirely. And through all of it, Thomas remained a ghost from her past, present only in tabloid headlines and family controversies that erupted with painful regularity. The estrangement hasn't just separated father and daughter. It has created an entire parallel universe of relationships that will never exist. Thomas has never shaken hands with Prince Harry, the man who married his daughter. He has never heard Harry call him dad or sir or anything at all. They are strangers bound only by their connection to Meghan. When Harry talks about family, Thomas isn't part of that conversation. When Harry defends Meghan against attacks, he's often defending her against Thomas's own words given freely to the media. Then there are the grandchildren. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor was born in May 2019, almost exactly a year after the wedding Thomas missed. He's now 6 years old. Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor was born in June 2021. She's 4 years old. Thomas has never met either of them. He has never held them as babies, never watched them take their first steps, never heard them call him grandpa. He doesn't know if Archie has his eyes or if Lilibet has Meghan's smile. He exists to them only as a name, if they even know his name at all. The pain of that reality must be crushing. Thomas carried photographs of Meghan across the Pacific Ocean, but he has no photographs of his grandchildren except the few public images released by Harry and Meghan. He can't frame pictures of family gatherings because he's never been invited to one. He can't tell stories about their personalities because he doesn't know them. The grandfather role he might have imagined for himself, reading bedtime stories, teaching them about photography and lighting, sharing memories of their mother's childhood, none of it will ever happen. The broader family rupture extends beyond just Thomas and Meghan. Samantha Markle, Thomas's daughter from his first marriage, filed a defamation lawsuit against Meghan that dragged through courts before being dismissed in 2023. The lawsuit claimed Meghan had made false and malicious statements about Samantha and their family in the infamous Oprah Winfrey interview. The judge disagreed, ruling that Meghan's statements were either substantially true or protected opinion, but the lawsuit added another layer of legal warfare to an already toxic family dynamic. Thomas Markle Jr., who moved to the Philippines with his father, has his own complicated history with Meghan. The half-siblings aren't close. The entire paternal side of Meghan's family has become a source of pain rather than support. While Meghan's mother, Doria Ragland, remains a constant presence in her life and her children's lives, the Markle side of the family tree is withered and broken. And with every passing year, with every manufactured controversy and public attack, the chances of reconciliation grow smaller. The wounds cut deeper. The silence becomes more permanent. Imagine waking up to headlines screaming that your father is trapped and dying in an earthquake disaster zone. Imagine the momentary panic, the flood of conflicting emotions, the muscle memory of concern for someone you haven't spoken to in 7 years. Then imagine discovering the entire story was fabricated by your half-sister, weaponized as yet another public attack against you during a real humanitarian crisis that killed dozens of people. That's the reality Meghan Markle faced on September 30th, 2025. For Meghan, this incident wasn't just another tabloid drama. It was a fresh reminder that her estranged family will exploit any opportunity, including natural disasters, to keep her name in controversy. Sources close to the Sussexes suggest that Meghan and Harry have become exhausted by the constant barrage of manufactured crises from the Markle side of the family. Every time they build something positive, every time they focus on their charitable work, or their children, or their creative projects, another explosion comes from Thomas, Samantha, or other relatives eager for their moment in the spotlight. The timing of Samantha's posts made the attack particularly cruel. Meghan has spent years defending herself against accusations of being cold, calculating, and heartless toward her family. Her critics paint her as someone who ruthlessly cut off her father after climbing the social ladder into royalty. Never mind the staged paparazzi photos. Never mind the constant media interviews Thomas gave revealing private family details. Never mind the lack of boundaries or respect for Meghan's requests for privacy. The narrative that sticks is the one where Meghan abandoned her elderly father, and Samantha's earthquake posts fed directly into that storyline. Palace insiders whisper that Harry has become increasingly protective of Meghan when it comes to her family's public attacks. He watched his own mother, Princess Diana, get destroyed by media narratives and family dysfunction. He's determined not to let history repeat itself with his wife. But what can they actually do? Every response gives the story more oxygen. Every statement gets twisted and analyzed. Silence is interpreted as guilt or indifference. Defending herself makes Meghan look defensive. It's a no-win situation, carefully designed by people who know exactly which buttons to push. The emotional toll must be staggering. Meghan is a mother now, raising Archie and Lilibet in an environment she and Harry have worked hard to make stable and loving. She's building a life focused on meaningful work, whether through their Archwell Foundation or their media ventures. She's tried to move forward, to leave the toxicity behind, but her paternal family won't let her. They keep dragging her back into public spectacles, forcing her to relive the estrangement, reminding the world that her family situation is messy and painful. Reports suggest that Meghan has become philosophical about the situation. She can't control what Samantha posts on social media. She can't stop Thomas from giving interviews or relocating to the Philippines. She can only control her own actions and protect her immediate family from the chaos. But that philosophical acceptance doesn't erase the hurt. It doesn't make it easier when the world watches her family weaponize tragedy against her. And it doesn't answer the question that must haunt her: will this ever end? This earthquake incident isn't an isolated event. It's the latest chapter in a pattern that has repeated itself with disturbing consistency since Meghan Markle entered the public eye. The Markle family playbook has become painfully predictable. Create or exaggerate a crisis, blame Meghan publicly, generate headlines and media attention, collect payment or sympathy, refuse to acknowledge when the story falls apart, then wait for the next opportunity to repeat the cycle. It's exhausting to watch, and it must be soul-crushing to experience. Let's trace the pattern back. May 2018, Thomas stages paparazzi photographs for money, gets exposed, becomes the story instead of the wedding. The narrative becomes about Meghan's embarrassing family rather than her fairy tale moment. Thomas then spends years giving paid interviews to tabloids, revealing private conversations, sharing childhood photos without permission, and painting himself as the wronged father desperate to reconnect with his ungrateful daughter. Each interview generates headlines. Each headline keeps the Markle drama alive. Samantha follows a similar script. She positions herself as the truth teller, the family member brave enough to expose Meghan's real character. She writes a tell-all book. She files a defamation lawsuit that ultimately gets dismissed. She gives countless interviews claiming Meghan ghosted the family after achieving fame. She creates a narrative where she and Thomas are victims of Meghan's ruthless ambition. When the lawsuit fails, when her claims get debunked, she simply moves on to the next attack. The earthquake posts fit perfectly into this established pattern. What makes the pattern particularly insidious is how it exploits real emotions and real family pain for public consumption. Thomas's grief over losing contact with Meghan might be genuine. His desire to meet his grandchildren might be real. But instead of addressing those feelings privately, or respecting Meghan's boundaries, or examining his own role in the estrangement, he channels everything into media spectacles. Samantha might genuinely feel protective of her father, but instead of quietly checking on his safety during an earthquake, she immediately weaponizes the situation on social media with inflammatory language designed to maximize damage to Meghan. Industry insiders who have watched this saga unfold for years suggest the pattern shows no signs of stopping. As long as the Markle name generates clicks, as long as tabloids pay for interviews, as long as social media rewards outrage with engagement, Thomas and Samantha have incentive to keep the drama alive. They've become minor celebrities in their own right, famous not for their own accomplishments, but for their proximity to Meghan and their willingness to publicly feud with her. That's a bitter kind of fame, but it's fame nonetheless. Royal commentators note that even the British royal family, with all its dysfunction and scandal, rarely sees this level of sustained family warfare played out in tabloids. The Markles have turned family estrangement into a cottage industry. Every birthday Meghan celebrates without contact becomes a story. Every milestone Archie and Lilibet reach without meeting their grandfather becomes another angle. Every appearance Harry and Meghan make gets analyzed through the lens of family drama. The pattern has become so entrenched that it's hard to imagine how it could ever be broken, short of complete silence from all parties or a reconciliation that seems increasingly impossible. Thomas Markle sits in his hotel room in Cebu, watching classic movies, seeking the peace that has eluded him for nearly a decade. He's 7,500 miles away from his daughter, living in a country where he hoped to escape the awful drama that has defined his final years. But even across an ocean, even in a place where he's supposed to be starting fresh, the chaos follows him. Not because of anything he did this time, but because his daughter Samantha dragged him back into the spotlight with fabricated claims during a deadly natural disaster. The question now is whether Thomas will finally draw a line. Will he publicly distance himself from Samantha's tactics? Will he acknowledge that her earthquake post crossed a boundary even he can't defend? Or will he remain silent, allowing the pattern to continue unchecked? His response, or lack thereof, will reveal a lot about whether he truly wants peace or whether some part of him still craves the attention, even when it comes at Meghan's expense. For Samantha, the consequences of her false alarm remain unclear. She made her social media account private, effectively hiding from the backlash. But will there be any real accountability? Will media outlets stop giving her platforms for interviews when her credibility has been so thoroughly destroyed? Or will the next manufactured crisis be just around the corner, with tabloids eager to publish whatever inflammatory claims she makes? Fact-checking be damned. The cynic in all of us knows the answer. As long as the Markle name sells papers and generates clicks, Samantha will have a microphone. As for Meghan, the path forward looks much the same as it has for 7 years. Continue building her life with Harry and their children. Continue working on projects that matter to her. Continue maintaining the boundaries that protect her mental health and her family's well-being. Continue enduring public attacks from people who share her DNA but not her values. The estrangement that began with a staged photograph and a missed wedding has calcified into something that feels permanent. Reconciliation would require accountability, genuine remorse, respect for boundaries, and a willingness to stop weaponizing family pain for public consumption. None of those things seem likely. Palace insiders speculate that Harry and Meghan have made peace with the reality that some relationships can't be salvaged. Not every family story has a happy ending. Sometimes the healthiest choice is distance, even when that distance gets criticized and misunderstood. Sometimes protecting your children from toxic dynamics matters more than maintaining connections with people who repeatedly hurt you. It's a painful truth, but it's a truth nonetheless. The earthquake incident will eventually fade from headlines, new scandals will emerge, the news cycle will move on, but the pattern will remain intact, waiting for the next opportunity to repeat itself. Thomas will continue his quiet life in the Philippines, carrying photographs of a daughter he no longer knows. Samantha will continue finding reasons to attack Meghan publicly, and Meghan will continue forward, building a life defined not by the family that rejected her boundaries, but by the family she's created with Harry, Archie, and Lilibet. The truth Thomas shared from the Philippines didn't shock Meghan's world. It simply confirmed what she already knew. Some wounds don't heal, some silences can't be broken, and sometimes, the people who share your blood are the ones you need to leave behind. So what do you think? Can Thomas ever truly find the peace he's searching for while his family continues to create chaos around him? Will Samantha ever face real consequences for weaponizing a natural disaster? And is there any path forward for the Markle family that doesn't involve more public pain and manufactured drama? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe and stay tuned because the next video is waiting and you won't believe what's coming next.